I guess, Brendan, you can see in attendees, you can see
I can.
Alfred is there
I
and Hamed.
can.
Ahmed.
Right. Activate. Waiting. Yes, yes, yes. Uh, Alfred and Hamid are both from ARTM
Oh, okay.
in Montreal. No, we got people from all sorts of different places. I saw.
Bonjour, tout le monde. Parle français aussi. Is the colors of the slides is also the colors of your website, isn't it? The branding?
Yes, yes, yes. That was part of the branding exercise. So
Nice.
they pick
Yeah,
up the sort of the bottom, ribbon,
yeah. I'm just looking
and
at that. I'm thinking, hey, those are the colors of your like email signature, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
your
It's
website. Cool.
all of the
Welcome to
Oops.
2024.
So let me turn off. Okay, I'm gonna turn off my phone too. Oops.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Good luck. Alexander, Atakan, David, Gerald. I know that the Transit Analytic Lab and Professor Shalabi or Amer,
Yeah.
they did present at TRB, right?
Oh, he had, I think, 10 papers.
No kidding.
Yeah, he
Cool.
had a whole bunch. He had several of his students there, and they had posters, and I think one podium session or one podium presentation. But
Did you go to
yeah,
the poster sessions? Did you go down?
I never made it. No,
No.
I was in committee meetings practically the whole time, which is for me is I went to a couple sessions, but mostly I was watching, finding out what was going on in the different committees that I'm interested in.
Yep. I did go to they had like a career fair on Sunday
Hmm.
afternoon. It was only open for like 2.5 hours. I think it should have had it longer. And then I did go to a couple of poster sessions on ITS or transportation and health.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, one of them was by Professor Trevor Hansen from UNB.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and they lost his poster in
Oh,
transit. So he
oh boy.
actually was able to go to the hotel and print off like 8.5 by 11. So that's like it was like puzzle pieces. Um, yeah. Anyway, so
Oh, that's too bad.
yeah.
Sort of
And he said we
throws you
made
off when that happens. Yeah.
it does. So the lady behind him actually had made a poster from fabric so that you can fold it double, and take it
Oh,
with you, and you don't have to worry about sort of like a fabric type style. And yeah,
yeah. Yes, that's actually. I think the one time I did a poster, that was sort of what I ended up doing.
well, it's only 1 minute before 3, so I think Brendan will just give it maybe another couple of minutes.
Yes, that's fine. I can see people are still coming in.
Coming in. Yes.
It's very interesting because I know some of the people for a long time, but a lot of these people I never met.
There you go.
Yeah.
And I don't know many either. Let's find out, I think. So, I remember that when we hosted the Greater Toronto Hamilton Summit last year, almost two
Hmm.
years ago, a year and a half ago. Remember, we had quite a few um, university professors and students be present, and I
Hmm.
think there was a real push for or desire to actually, exactly on this topic that you're talking about today, sort of research into practice. Make sure that all stakeholders or interested parties, uh, you know, are
Yeah.
talking to each other. And it's something that we talked about yesterday as well as we got ready for the call today, didn't we?
Yeah. No, it's it's well, not to give too much away. It's been
No,
a long time coming, but I think we're finally at a very interesting juncture where things are coming together, uh, despite the challenges on both sides. It's
give it another 2 minutes, Brendan. It's 1 minute
sure.
after 3. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. Uh, get us up to the 50% mark.
Yeah. Oh, nice, Carol. Hi, Carol. That's from McMaster, Brampton. Sorry, I can see who they all are, obviously. Carlton, good afternoon, Professor Khan. Brampton, Sima, Ali, Denis. Bonjour, Eric. Quite a few from Brampton. Cool.
Yes.
Good to see. People from the States. Cool. Brendan, you're a rock star.
No, it's just a testimony. I've been around a long time.
Waterloo University. Cool. CUDA as well. Your
Yeah.
old colleagues or young colleagues. Bonjour. TQ. Ah, Willem, Plumpentown. Hello, Willem. Gotta speak Dutch when I can. Cool. Quite a few
Okay.
people from Brampton, Brendan. So,
Yes. Yes, I
um,
saw.
cool. Um, I'm gonna welcome you, Brendan. My name is Janneke. I'm the Managing Director of ITS Canada, and I am honored today to introduce to you Brendan Hemley, who is the chairperson of the ITS Canada APTS committee. And welcome to all attendees who are taking time out of their afternoon to join and learn about applying transit data and analytics research into practice. Brendan, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Annika. So, welcome to all. We have quite a diverse group, which is great, with a fair number of researchers, transit agency staff, consultants, and a few vendors. And I think it's just testimony of how the whole area of transit data is really exploding and becoming very interesting. And as Janneke said, I'm chair of the Advanced Public Transit Systems Committee of ITS Canada. But I'm in a fairly unique position. Just quickly about my background, I originally, well, I'm passionate about transit, and you're sure to see that through the presentation. But I was originally aimed to be an academic, and for various reasons ended up being hired away by the Canadian Urban Transit Association, CUDA, the trade association for transit in Canada, and worked there 15 years and managed first a research and development coordination program, and then a pooled research program called the Strategic Transit Research Program. And I really got into the whole concept of applied research. Even though many of my academic peers are sort of focused on methodologies and so forth, I really was interested in things that took research and innovation and put it into practice. And So I became an independent consultant, and now for 24 years. But I don't do normal consulting. I do applied research. I like to look at broad problems of the industry, look at best practices, identify research needs, and see where I think the industry should be going. So over the course of many years, I've been following the whole issue of transit data, and I'm in a fairly unique position because of following it for a long time, but also looking at it from both uh, from an academic point of view. I'm very involved in TRB. I was chair of the Transit Planning Committee and chair of the Public Transportation Group for 4 years. But also from a practitioner, I'm very involved in not only ITS Canada, and CUDA, and NAPTA. So that's part of my perspective. So I thought I'd tie a lot of these threads together. I see from the attendee list, I know some of you for a long time, but there's many of you I don't know, and especially a whole bunch of academics or profs, both profs and students. So I thought I'd take this opportunity to bring this all together and perhaps challenge a number of you uh, with perspectives of about applied research. So the agenda is I'm going to go into a little bit more depth about where I'm coming from, talk about the evolution of the application transit data. And when I talk about transit data, I'm talking about transit ITS data primarily. So AVL, automatic vehicle location systems, APCs, automatic passenger counting systems, AFC, advanced fare collection systems, smart cards, basically. Look at the convergence, this unique convergence I feel happening between research and practice, and some suggestions of what can be done. So trying to talk about the challenges, but also be positive about where we might be able to head to. So first, where am I coming from? So as I mentioned, as I sort of discussed, I've been involved in the academic side. I worked for Indiana University Institute for Urban Transportation with one of the gurus of transit management, policy management, marketing, George Smirk. And then I worked at CUDA, and I've been an independent consultant and very involved in TRB. And all of this common theme of all of this is trying to bridge the gap between research and practice to stimulate innovation and enhance effectiveness and efficiency. So let me talk about the evolution data. I know there's a lot of young students, graduate students, on the call. The technology that we're talking about, the transit ITS, or the core of it is called CAD AVL, and those systems first appeared in the 1980s. And the focus was on security, incident management, service restoration. But I organized for CUDA in 1988 an international conference on AVL, and there was a whole session on using AVL data. That led to a report all the way back in 1991 on the use of AVL APC data, where a couple transit agencies had already realized what they could do with that data. That there was a seminal study by TRB TCRP in report 113, led by my colleague Peter Firth, and I was a sub, and organized a workshop with suppliers. But it took many years before suppliers started providing data that could be used in any shape or form. And then something happened in 2014. A bunch of academics interested in applied research got together and organized a workshop on the use of, at the time, smart card data. Eventually, there's been one almost every year or every other year. And that led to a very large conference that I and my colleague Gamer Shalaby, who's the director of the Transit Analytics Lab, organized in 2020 on the use and application of transit data and analytics. And more recently, there's been an effort to try to use or figure out how to harness that data. So this just gives you a little graphic that shows from the 1991 report. So that is 32 years ago. And it was very plain, no fancy visualization, all tables and graphs. But it showed the kinds of thoughts, the basic things about running times, on-time performance, and loads that one could do. But it's been a very long time seeing how this evolves. So why is it been so difficult. I've gone to a lot of conferences and watched the evolution of the use of data. And one, this sort of formulated in my mind a perspective on the transit industry. And this may challenge some of you, but I still think it's pretty accurate and explains the complexity of innovating in the innovation in the transit industry. So if you think about it in four tiers, the whole industry, all the transit agencies in North America, at the top is what I would call cutting edge, and not just North America, it's in the world. The percentages are just based on my gut feeling. In fact, I think they're kind of optimistic. But for any given topic area, planning, maintenance, operations, uh, funding, fare collection, fare policy, so forth, there are innovators or optimizers because of a culture, because of CEOs, because of the policy board, because they're private sector and they want to maximize profits. So there's a very small number that are all, and these tend to be the ones that work with universities. In the world, it's places like Transport for London and the RATP in Paris and MTR in Hong Kong and the LTA in Singapore. It's places of these that are always on the cutting edge. At the bottom are the agencies that, because they're small or because of the nature of where they are and lack of support for transit, they are in a survival mode where they are provided just enough subsidies, low level tolerated subsistence to provide really, really basic service to the transportation disadvantaged. And so they're really very difficult. They have no resources, no tools to really innovate. From the top, the second level is what I call best practices. So these are agencies where, for one reason or another, often stimulated by middle managers, that find something that works and convinces the policymakers and the general management that they hire that they're they should adopt best practices. So that's sort of when I go to a conference, see a presentation, and say, well, you know, that's really solid. That's really good practice. So what does that leave? Well, that leaves 50% of the number of the transit agencies that are what I call adopting standard practice in organizational theory called satisficers. When there's a problem, they just choose. They're not looking for the best solution. They're not looking for innovative solutions. They're looking for the first solution that meets their criteria. So this is perspective that I have about the transit industry, and you can sort of see right away this is very, very different from industries such as high-tech industries where they're competing about being on the cutting edge. So what are some of the challenges? Well, I don't think this will be a great surprise to many of you, but transit is primarily an operations-driven, risk-averse industry relying on standard operating procedures, SOPs, and it's in the public eye. Think about it as a fishbowl, where everything that happens is immediately in the public domain. So there's complex procurement. They also suffer from complex procurement data protection rules, constrained resources. They always have to prove the value of research. And the vendors and consultants, by and large, respond to the industry RFPs. So if the transit agency is not asking for innovation, then they won't get it. And research, so as a result, research and innovation and use of data are really hard sells. But I'm become more and more optimistic that data analytics is really a promising application of research. So it's a long road to go. Some of you on the line know already that they've gotten control of the quality of their data, ITS data, but this takes a long time. There are many, many issues matching the scheduling data to the AVL data to the APC data, and now more and more smart card data. Sorting out things like loops at the end of the line or where the bus is waiting at the end of the line, negative balances, drivers getting on and off. so forth and so on. And I identified many of these challenges in a paper I wrote in 2015, and a lot of agencies are still at that level of just trying to clean up the data so that they can use it. But there's a growing number that have moved way beyond that, and that's a very promising uh, point of fact. I also should point out that ITS systems like AVL and AFC, they weren't designed with data in mind. And so it took a long time for that use of the data to be crystallized and to be made feasible. So that's the challenges, some of the challenges on the transit side. What about the researchers? So I've attended those workshops on transit data, most of them for over the last 10 years. And I guess my message is, what's the point? And there are more and more academics doing applied research, but what's the point of doing applied research if it's never applied? And that's a, a continuous challenge that I want to put forward to the academics. So what are some of their challenges? Well, pursuing applied research is not generally valued in the engineering academic system. It is a bit more in planning, but really to move forward as an academic, you need to publish in academic journals. And these journals, no practitioner has access to them. They tend to focus on the cutting edge methodological discussions. It's not really a place it's very hard to publish, although there's more and more journals that are a bit interested in applied research. It's a fundamental challenge. Another challenge is that academics constantly need data for research. And for a long time, that data just wasn't available or was extremely difficult to get. But more and more, the systems public data is available through open data sources, new tools like passive data. But if you are looking at private data, such as looking at TNCs or bike sharing and so forth, those are mostly private partners, and that requires special negotiations. But one of the key things is that there's no such thing as free data. A collaboration requires a quid pro quo. Even if a transit agency has data available, making sure that it's of a sufficient quality and that they can stand behind it and to clean it up, and it may need to be cleaned up at a level of individual logs, much more detailed than they normally use. There's got to be something that's a benefit to them, and that's a difficult challenge of finding that middle ground that works for both sides. So you need the partners, you need communication channels, you need trust, access to the data, and academics need to think about, well, what is really a benefit to operators, and then figure out how to rely on that interest and the ability to test the applications. But dissemination remains a fundamental challenge for applications. As I mentioned, journal articles are only read by other academics. If you're working with private partners, the findings remain confidential. Conferences, what do you get out of conferences? I get a lot, but in practical terms, what you get is sometimes PDFs of a presentation. And that's part of the reason that there's been a new initiative called TIDES, I'll come back to it, that is an enabler to actually share data and share applications. TRB is a great place. There's a new committee that was created a couple of years ago called the Transit Data Committee, AP090. It's really going gangbusters. It has a monthly webinar series, a regular newsletter. I'll come back to that, but if you're interested in the cutting edge of both finding which transit agencies are really thinking about data and some of the researchers interested in applied research, it's one of the best places to go to. And sometimes universities organize local workshops for practitioners, but the main benefit of universities is that how they affect and improve transit agencies and transit industry is through the dissemination that occurs when you place bright students that understand about transit in transit agencies and consulting. It's very promising, but it's a long-term process to affect change. But I think there's growing convergence going on. Data and analytics, uh, it, research that is really starting to be applied. It's slow, but it's happening, and I think it's slowly building a data-driven transit industry. So, how do I see that occurring, or what's happening? Well, the transit industry is I can really see a growing interest in ITS data. Um, it's been very slow, but there's a potential to create information from the data that can be used to enhance effectiveness and efficiency. And data is growing in importance as strategic resource in decision making. I think, at least in some transit agencies, policymakers and general management are understanding the power of the data, and they're understanding the use of KPIs. There's growing interest in dashboards. There's starting to see decision support systems, and there's also a continual discussion about open data. What about the academics? Well, I think I see, despite the challenges of the academic system and how it promotes the increased focus on data and analytics and related applied research. The ITS and AFC systems are more mature. There's easier access to data. There's new visualization and analytic tools. There's increased discussion of use cases. Uh, a number of academics have sort of figured out a dual track approach where they can sort of combine academic research with applied research. And then, as I mentioned, the TRB Transit Data Committee is a great forum. And there's also a growing number of university centers that have started focusing on transit data analytics, like the University of Toronto, like MIT Northeastern, which was MIT was sort of the grandfather in this area, Polytechnique, TU Delft, two different universities in Chile, University of Kyoto, Queensland University, and so forth and so on. Just a second while I put up. Sorry. So I think what I tried to do is map out the kinds of applications that I've been seeing. So first, I developed a typology where I've seen either research or practitioners using data for systematic monitoring, dashboards, executive management, KPIs. A lot on service operations planning. The starting point is typically on-time performance, schedule adherence, running time analyses. Academics, I highlight in red, their starting point tends to be a different one. They tend to start with origin destination tables, which are very cool. Very small number of transit agencies in North America have really caught on to how you can take AFC data, smart card data, and develop very rich sources of information about travel behavior and where people are going and and how they behave. Strategic analyses, major redesigns campaigns now rely extensively on data. Tactical analyses, things like delays by intersection, which help locations for priority treatment, excessive stop dwell time, stop consolidation, fare evasion, exploratory data mining. I've seen analyses, safety analyses, accessibility and equity, and we're starting to see decision support for real-time operational control, service restoration, bunching gaps, using machine learning and tools of that sort, or detour management and bus bridging. So then I've tried to sort of tease out a bit more some of the themes I've been seeing in terms of the research, and academics, like I said, focus a lot on methodology, but some of these are very valuable methodologies to clean data, new technologies to collect data, as I mentioned, inference engines for origin destination, analysis, accuracy of new methodologies, transit assignment, capacity versus scheduling optimization, rail simulation, and a whole bunch now starting to occur about electrification as well. And kinds of analyses: travel behavior, bus stop level, route choice, disruptions, demand, mobility knowledge, sources of delay, on-time performance, overloads, pass-ups, service planning, optimization, all sorts of different things that you can do with the data. That's just a sampling of some of the uses. And now we see new horizons: use of passive data, for example, Wi-Fi traces in the subways, behavior and disruptions. What happens when there's a disruption? Where does the crowding occur? What is passenger movement? What do people choose to do? Predictive analytics, passenger loads, for example, real-time operation control, gaps and bunching, social media data. How do you analyze that with specialized language lexicons and using AI to sort through the enormous amount of data? Machine learning, as I mentioned before, it's been COVID response and visualization of what and real-time information about crowding levels and so forth and so on. What I personally think we need to see a bit more of is a broader perspective on effectiveness. I really like this European standard on quality of service that came out in, I believe, 2005, and then another one in 2008. And it creates this service quality circle. So in the yellow is what technical people measure. So you start with the desired levels of service and you measure the performance, and that sort of gives you a feeling of what was delivered. But that doesn't really matter to the customers. The customers, it's the perceived perception of the quality of service. And so one needs measurement of satisfaction and then try to make sure that all of this matches up together. By the way, if anybody's interested in those European standards, they're not very long, just shoot me an email. Price elasticities. I'm not quite sure why this is not taken off as much. There's starting to be some analysis, especially since you're using smart card data. You would think it's relatively easy, but that's something I think we need more understanding of. Analytics to support operations and management. That's starting to happen big time in a number of places. Transit in the new mobility ecosystem, and then something that hasn't happened at all yet, but in the larger world of transportation, connected automated vehicles, CAV, and smart cities. There's a role for transit to fit into that, but there's been no efforts to date in that area, and eventually that should be something to think about if we want to really believe in multimodal systems. So suggestions of what can be done to apply applied research. Well, going back to my vision of the industry, researchers tend to work primarily with cutting edge organizations or people that are in the cutting edge within organizations. And that's very useful because it informs best practice. But you can sort of see, if we really want to change the industry, what we need is the standard practice agencies we need more dissemination, convincing the policy boards and transit management about the benefits of these developments and this research, and get them to adopt it. And that's a role for government agencies. It's a role for associations. Sadly, in Canada, there's not very many government agencies that are really focusing on this. A lot of it disappeared in the 1990s when there was a major reshuffling of the public sector. In the States, the U.S. Department of Transportation spends a lot of energy and has huge websites on what they call PCB, professional capacity building, which is both training, it's standards, but it's also dissemination of pilot projects to the industry. Even there, it's not far from perfect, but it's a significant effort to try to improve dissemination. So, but if you're within a transit agency and you're really, trying to work with, take advantage of research, work with researchers, we need to build the internal case for data analytics to policymakers and management. And a number of places have been succeeding in doing this. They identify use cases, they analyze return on investment, And really the whole area of visualization tools and dashboards is really sensitized a lot. It's been helping to sensitize policymakers and management about the value of this data and the tools needed and the people needed to continue that effort. And then facilitating technology transfer. So I mentioned the Transit ITS data exchange specification called TIDES. There was a TRB, TCRP report on it, and there's been a continued effort by my friend Jean Levin at Metro Transit. It looks like there's now going to be working with mobilitydata.org. But what this does would allow for a common specification for data so that data could be shared internally, but also externally, as well as applications, so that if applications were developed using this specification, then the same application could be transferred to another agency that uses the same specification. We're just at the beginning of it, but I think it's very promising, and I've been a big supporter of it. And then need to involve associations, CUDA, APTA. There's a major effort in California by the Department of Transportation called Caltrans, called CalITP, to really try to support, especially the small and medium transit systems, size transit systems. And as I mentioned, the whole issue of PCB, professional capacity building. So getting close to the end here, internal data governance and management arc. Sorting out technical challenges, then it moves to internal organizational discussions per project. Eventually, that may lead to leadership buy-in, and then strategic planning, which is sort of a top-down approach, or using each resolved project as building blocks bottom up, and then enterprise development. But there's, in parallel, a growing interest in research and innovation in this whole process. I've developed for ITS Canada 2022 paper, small scoping paper on transit system innovation. If anybody's interested in these links, just shoot me an email afterwards, or find me on LinkedIn. I'd be glad to send you the link and the presentation. And then getting more collaboration. So as I mentioned, that's the key between academics and industry. That's finding common language, it's developing trust, it's developing communication systems, possibly refocusing educational programs, especially, for example, U of T just has developed a master's level data science, transit-specific data science course. And one thing which we've come to realize that think for transit agencies and municipalities modifying procurement processes, because research is not consulting, and yet most procurement offices treat it exactly the same. So just a sort of examples, a bit of a plug for U of T's TAL, Transit Analytics Lab, doing research on a number of different topic areas and different modes, and a couple of practical examples. I did a lot of work developing a decision support tool for bus bridging, timetable development with when there's multiple depots and how you deal with optimizing scheduling. Developed the transit equity dashboard and at Transit Center, which provides data for 7 U.S. mega regions, and social media analytics for customer satisfaction. Oops, sorry. I'm very proud of the Transit Data International Symposium that we organized virtually in 2020. 250 participants. The objective was to get practitioners. 2/3 were practitioners. 100 speakers, 19 countries, 13 presentation sessions, 9 plenary sessions. All the recordings and presentations are available for free on that website. And transitdata2020.ca. And again, part of our effort to support dissemination. And I've also listed a number of key resources. I won't go through this. If anybody's interested, like I say, just shoot me an email or find me on LinkedIn. I'll be glad to send it to you with all the links. So to wrap up, I think I see, after a long and slow progression, which was kind of depressing, we're finally, I think, on the cusp of a data-driven future, and it's very exciting. So with that, I'll wrap up and deal with a couple questions I see in there. Use the question box with a question mark at the top for questions, and I will take a look at them. Uh, sorry about the size of the slides we had. I was trying to watch the questions at the same time, and it didn't really work out as we as I'd hoped. Yes, like I said, if I'm not sure you okay. As I mentioned, the just email me at that address, and I will maybe I'll put it in the chat as well. Is there any research underway on applying transit data and analytics for transit systems that may be supplementing conventional fixed route service with microtransit operators, particularly during off-peak and low residentials? There's a lot of areas. Originally, these other modes were called micro transit. Now it's more commonly referred to as on-demand transit, ODT. There's a lot of research, including a PhD student at U of T that's looking into integrated approaches and direct demand models for predicting demand of these new ODT services. There's a paper recently published. If you send me, I'll forward it to Ala, and Willem was a co-author with myself. I would be happy to send it to you. It's there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of challenges. It provides potentially a much better service, but there is a valid question of social interest. Where does the social interest lie, and how much is it worth spending on it? And that's it's not an easy question, but there've been some very successful efforts in Durham region, in York region, in Edmonton, in Canada, and a number of cities in the States that were actually supported through federal grants that supported pilot projects. Any? I think those are the questions. Let me just put in the chat. Ooh. See. Yannicka, do you think I can here? I can just put it here.
There is no questions in the chat, but I have a question about the professional capacity building. I think you mentioned two, ITS JPO office. I would assume that's what it is.
Yeah.
Or the JPO office, and the other one I think was FTA, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing in Canada, and that's
well. Sorry, just I've been around long enough to see what happened. In the 90s, there were lots of efforts, both by the federal government. There was something called the Transportation Development Center. It didn't focus on transit per se, but it focused on transportation and did lots of pilot projects. And then and different provincial agencies in Ontario and Quebec and BC and Alberta were doing pilot projects and workshops and so forth. And then there was a major paradigm shift in the public sector, and a lot of those programs were eliminated. So there's been the occasional effort since then. In recent years, there was 15, 20 years where there was nothing really, basically. There were a couple programs, but they tended to be, a pilot project, but there was no requirement to write a report. So there was no information that came out of the pilot project. They basically were just risky capital investments, I'd call it that way. And it's still, there's very little. There's been a couple. Ontario has had a program for community transportation in small and rural areas. That's about one of the only ones I can think of. The federal government had a smart city challenge program that involved mobility was an important part of it. There was also another program called ACATS on automated shuttles. or at least touched on automated shuttles. But again, there's no dissemination. And in fact, the reports that had been published before have disappeared. So I think it's a major weakness, compared to the US, compared to the EU, compared to even countries like small countries like Netherlands, France. They all have applied research specialties, applied research institutions or programs that pursue this, and uh, we don't have that in Canada.
If what sort of leadership does it require to sort of get that dialogue going again? Is that all of us in the room here, municipalities or provinces, or any?
I don't know. It's really challenging. Where the federal government tends to focus its research is where there's clear economic development benefits. So the auto industry. So Waterloo, you know, they are providing lots and lots of opportunities, and they have lots of funding. They get to develop technologies related to automotive software. Both University of Waterloo, McMaster, University of Alberta, UBC, but they all tend to focus on automotive technology because there's direct link to that, and hiring bright students that can do research that will have very direct um, impacts on, or industrial benefits. Transit research will never do that. I mean, well, there's one area where they do this, is electrification. There's a lot of investment in research related to electric buses and hydrogen, battery buses, hydrogen buses. The whole Q-TRIC program is very heavily and receives heavy investments and subsidies from the federal government to support the electric bus industry and electric rail, looking into rail technologies. So there are areas, and Quebec has a massive program on electric buses. But for things like ODT, I mean, the states had a massive program called Mobility on Demand Sandbox, where they spent millions of dollars with pilot projects all over the U.S. There's been a couple token projects in Canada. So it's just small country, but I think there are examples where that could be done. As you know, I did a study for under the uh, Canadian Act, um,
TAR.
yeah, revision, where I emphasized that, but it didn't have any real impact.
Hey, I don't see any other questions. Before we go, Brendan,
Yes,
the call is recorded. Do I have your permission to turn the recording into a YouTube video, is what we normally do,
sure,
and
sure.
post this on our YouTube channel, as well as the APTS committee website,
Yeah,
our webpage on the ITS Canada website.
yeah.
Um,
There
and
were a couple of people that couldn't attend and wanted to see it, so
yeah,
you can
perfect.
once we do that, we can let everybody know that it's available, and
That's
hopefully it was of interest to people. And if anybody wants to follow up or has any reactions or disagrees with my vision of the world, please let me know. I'm my website's brendanhemley.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, and just feel free to contact me.
wonderful. Well, I was going to say round of applause, but Brendan, thank you so very much for this insightful presentation. I want to thank all the attendees for having joined us this afternoon. Just wanted
And
to let everyone go ahead.
go ahead. No, I just want to say hopefully I didn't depress anybody too much in the process.
No, not at all. Um, just wanted to let everybody know that the ITS Canada 2024 annual conference call for abstracts and session proposals is open. It closes February 16th, in about 3 weeks or so from today. More details can be found on the itscanada2024.ca event website, or you can send me an email, yannick@itscanada.ca. And the recording probably will be available on the ITS Canada YouTube page. And I want to thank everybody again, Brendan. Thank you, and stay tuned for more APTS webinars coming up. Thank you. Great afternoon, everybody.
Bye-bye.